Rumor has it that the average number of books read by a CEO is 60 books per year, or 5 books each month. While there isn't really a reliable source that shows that this number is true, I have no doubt that great leaders are also great readers. Reading is an active skill that enhances many aspects of life, especially critical thinking, communication, and storytelling, which are some of the essential abilities to have to define and execute strategies. But I'm not here to tell you why you should read. I'm here because this is our second of our 4-episode OFFBounds summer series, and I have a list of 8 books for you to enjoy this August. Here's Paula Macadi, and this is episode 32 of my show. Welcome to OFFBounds. Summer is here, and hopefully many of you are taking some time off to enjoy family, friends, and have your well-deserved holidays. Staying away from work is crucial for creativity and productivity. Lin-Manuel Miranda conceived of Hamilton while on vacation. He said that the moment his brain got a moment of rest, Hamilton walked into it. An Ernst & Young study showed that for every additional 10 hours of vacation time that employees took, their year-end performance improved 8%. And another study showed that using all of your vacation time increases your chances of getting a promotion or a raise. And why am I saying that? Because Netflix really believes that and gives unlimited PTOs to all employees, which is very unusual, especially in the US. The first book I want to bring to this episode today is No Rules, written by the Netflix CEO Reed Hastings Erin Meyer, who is a cross-cultural organization specialist. And she even wrote another book called The Culture Map that I really like it, but I'll talk about it in another occasion. But I'm bringing this book here because it is a book about culture, which is the engine that moves every organization. The key point of the title is because the company tends to have no rules, as they see it as a block to creativity and company flow. That means that any employee has the power of decision-making approvals, for example. They are given autonomy and ownership on the projects they want to pursue. They are also encouraged to give feedback to anyone in the company, including the CEO, without having to go through their hierarchical ladder so common in many companies. The key to empower the employees so much is to hire the right ones. He calls it as building up talent density, which means creating a workforce of high performance. If you have stunning colleagues that do an amazing job, you get more inspired and everybody does a better job. And I'm sure all of you who is listening here had an experience of having a bad apple among your colleagues. That really brings the people down. A players do a much better job working with A players. One of the strategies to attract and retain high performers with the company is by paying top of market. If the average annual salary for a specific position is $100K, in other companies, Netflix will pay $120, for instance. And that doesn't mean they will give you a bonus based on your performance. So you will earn a salary that is more than any other company's compensation policy that includes a performance bonus. Guaranteed. Among many other reasons on why I find this book phenomenal to open our minds to different leadership strategies, I'll touch again on the unlimited paid time off. This has been a big debate and many articles have been written on how that means that employees will actually take less time off compared to when they had a specific day set. And that's true. So the strategy used by Netflix is to have the leaders taking time off and coming back showing pictures of the fun things they have done on their holidays and therefore encouraging everyone in the company to enjoy them as well. And before we go to the next book for you to read this summer, I also want to praise Netflix for not calling themselves a family, but really calling themselves a team, and that just like sports, all team players need to work together for a better company. So changing team members who aren't adding up to the results is perfectly acceptable and expected, including the CEO. And it might seem obvious, but building an incredible team is key for companies to be great, because being only good isn't enough. And here comes our second book, which is a classic, Good to Great by Jim Collins. This is a book that was recommended by one of my mentors, and thank goodness he recommended that to me. I agree with him that it should be read by everyone. As soon as someone applies to college, this should be your first assignment, like read it. Even though it was published in 2001, the content of the book can still be applied to today's businesses, and it is 100% based on facts and numbers. Jim Collins and his team were curious to understand why some companies outperform others and did a massive research with leaders and stock market analysis. In the book, Collins writes about what are the things all these companies have in common and made them go from good to great and bring results up to 18 times higher than the general stock market. Between many examples, the author points out to some key common features. First, we usually think that the leader will set a strategy and then hire the right people to achieve a specific goal. But no, the good to great companies will first put the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, then the right people on the right seats, and then figure out where to drive it. These outperforming companies think differently about the role of technology because they are careful in selecting them. They understand that it's not technology that will drive transformation, but they are the first ones to apply the right ones. Another one that is very similar to what we learned reading the Netflix book is what he calls the culture of discipline. When you have a culture of discipline, you don't need hierarchy or bureaucracy. And between many other learnings, he shared the importance of confronting brutal facts, meaning that you have to understand your current reality, whatever that might be. One example he uses to explain this is an interesting comparison between the performance of two American grocers, Kroger and A&P. A&P doesn't exist anymore. It used to be the largest retailer in the world back in the 50s, but as the Second World War was becoming more distant, US consumers began to change and prefer superstores where they could find everything. Both Kroger and A&P were old companies and behind the general market. Both had access to the data, but they took different actions. A&P even tried a testing store and very soon closed it because they didn't like to face the results. Kroger, on the other hand, realized that the traditional grocery stores they had will soon be extinct. So they shifted their stores to superstores and outperformed the general market by 10 times because they faced the facts. By the way, we talk about a similar case around US department stores on episode 25 with Steve Dennis. You should check it out. Our third and fourth book recommendation for this summer are about a brand that has inspired so many of us for many years. Both books made my eyes wet because they both are made of grit and emotion. And of course, they are talking about Nike. Even though Nike isn't at its best after showing disappointing results and losing $28 billion of value, it is still one of the strongest brands worldwide. If you read Shoe Dog by Nike's co-founder Phil Knight, you will learn and feel each pain and glory of the process of building Nike and how much he meant for them. From not knowing what to do, to traveling the world, to sourcing shoe manufacturers in Japan, to being sued by their business partners, this man went through a lot. But the best part of the book isn't only about how they overcame each of the many obstacles, but why. Phil was obsessed with the sports. When he talks about the many challenges they went through, he always mentions him running. He passionately talks about the runner Pre, who is the only athlete Nike built a statue of. Phil woke up every day for something that was beyond the shoes and the company. He woke up for a cause. And in his book, there are tons of incredible quotes. Here's one of them. When you make something, when you improve something, when you deliver something, when you add some new thing or service to the lives of many strangers, making them happier or healthier or safer or better, and when you do it all crisply and efficiently, smartly, the way everything should be done, but so seldom, is you are participating more fully in the whole grand human drama. More than simply alive, you are helping others to live more fully. And if that's business, all right, call me a businessman. I love this sentence. The second book about Nike is Emotion by Design, written by Greg Hoffman. He was the former CMO of Nike. Greg talks about his younger self graduating in design and his internship at Nike, and how it was the Nike designs that made him a fan of different athletes. He talks a lot about the passion within the company culture and sports. The passage that got me into tears was when he went to Brazil to start a football campaign and how he felt the emotion that the people there expressed when watching the national team players on the field. They were really heroes. The book talks about the incredible marketing and branding aspects of the company, including the design of stores, of logos, of campaigns, and again, the emotion. Incredible storytelling. These two books are good to understand how Nike's culture has been predominantly centered on emotions and impact. Comparing it with how the brand is now, when their stores lost their attractiveness and their latest campaign sounds like a Trump speech, we are currently watching the brand losing its roots. I'm a customer and I'm a huge fan of Nike, but the Olympics commercial really made me question if that's the brand I want to be associated with. But by reading both books, I strongly believe it will recover and will turn around a lot stronger. Another inspiring story told in first person comes from Panera Bread's founder, Ron Shaich. His book was published last year and it was probably the only one that put me in the CEO shoes. No One Matters is the 5th book of our list, and it talks about Ron's journey from selling cookies to selling Panera Bread for $7.5 billion in 2017. The first thing he talks about in his book is how we should pursue our life from the future back. Imagine where and how you want to be many years from now and strategize your life together. Because we can never rewrite our past, but if you have the courage to change yourself now, you can write your future. Honestly, I can write a full episode about this book, but I will be short here. Ron is a passionate leader who really cares about the customer. Even after the company had thousands of stores, he was still going to them to talk to the frontline and customers. Ron is an operations guy. He is a visionary and talks a lot about governance. He shared a bit of his resentment of making the company public, as the pressure to deliver quarterly results makes the long-term plans more challenging, and how different it is, the entrepreneurial life comparing to leading a large enterprise. This was probably the only book that made me feel in a meeting, trying to convince the board of selling the key part of the business, and everyone looking at me thinking I'm crazy. That's how good Ron's storytelling is, and that's how he almost got fired. He also shares how it was to deal with activist investors, not once, but twice. How to go through a transformation and all the pain points. This is an excellent book for any leader, but especially if you work in retail. Ron is a star and showed many relatable and vulnerable sides of leading a consumer-facing company for 37 years. And it's very similar to the next author of our 6th book recommendation, The Ride of a Lifetime, written by Disney CEO Robert Iger. After reading this book, I feel close enough to him to call him Rob. Rob talks about his career in media and growing within the corporate ladder to become the president of ABC, then COO of Capital Cities, that was acquired by Disney in 1996, and working closely with Michael Eisner until becoming the CEO. I love how he talks in the book about the leaders he learned from, how he absorbed and gained knowledge, and with every quality and flaws each of his superiors had. My favorite part of the book are when he gets in the helm of the company and starts changing what needs to be done. One of the first things he did was changing the micromanagement style from the previous leader. And then he started with thinking their movies and animations, leading to the acquisition of Pixar. Reading the story of negotiations with Steve Jobs was incredible. And don't even get me started with his conversations with George Lucas. Disney is now a big company with more than 200,000 employees. When Rob wrote this book, he had just left the company in 2020. He returned now to the role of CEO in 2022 and is facing a lot of criticism. But leading with the pressure of shareholders and press is normal for leaders. Here's a good quote from his book. The decision to disrupt a business model that is working for you requires no small amount of courage. It means intentionally taking on short-term losses in the hope that a long-term risk will pay off. I love this because that's also a learning from Ron Shaich's book. As much as I love reading from the leaders and their own point of view, it's always great to see the story of brands and companies from another angle. And I'm sure you are already thinking that I'm talking way too much about men, but unfortunately, most of the leadership books are still about them. But not this one. Our 7th book recommendation for this summer is about a much fresher brand, Glossier. The book Glossy was written by the journalist Marisa Meltzer and talks about the beauty phenomenon founded by Emily Weiss. After her successful blog, Into the Gloss moved the world of fashion. Glossier is a makeup brand founded in 2014 in New York, right in the year I moved there. The book talks about each step of creating the brand and the products and the perspective of a female founder looking for funding. Thankfully, Kirsten Green, the founder of the VC firm Forerunner, believed in the idea and Glossier became the brand of a generation. As it was written by a journalist, you can see all the perspectives about the business, from interviews with customers, with employees, and Emily. And not all perspectives were good all the time. Glossier lived the boom of the D2C companies in 2017 and 2018 and had a great voice for a community of millennial women, especially through the wave of the term girl boss around the US, which was incredibly criticized after some women failed to bring their business forward. Emily brought up in her interviews the book I recommended earlier, Shoe Dog. Actually, I read Shoe Dog because it was mentioned a few times in the book. She said at events that Glossier was a tech company and she tried to create a tech component in the organization that didn't quite work out. But in a time when so many tech leaders are seen like heroes, we can see the glam that saying that would bring. Glossier opened incredible stores and huge lines of women were formed to experience the brand. Today, Glossier has a bit more than 10 stores and the brand is so well represented in the store design. In the book, we experience the misses of the company, the moment Emily steps down as a CEO, and how Glossier goes back to being what it truly is, a beauty brand. Also, how today they aren't only D2C, they have their products sold at Sephora. This was a great book with so much to learn from. I think the part I liked the most was understanding the background of building a brand from a community and not the opposite. And let's go to the 8th and last book of this episode. This is probably the most important book any person that is working in commerce could read. That's the Experience Economy book written by Joseph Pine and James Gilmore and published by Harvard Business Review. You probably heard about this book because it was published in 1999, but they published a new updated version in 2011. I talked to Joseph and he mentioned he's writing a new book which will be published next year, and that got me incredibly excited. As you know, and I think we talked a lot about it so many times, we are living in the era of experiences, the era of doing over having. And it is expected from brands and retailers to deliver an experience instead of having only transactions. The authors show in the book how experience is an incredible tool for value creation. The first example the authors share is related to a commodity, coffee. Coffee, when it is a commodity, is sold for a few cents a cup. When it's sold in a supermarket, it becomes a good and costs a little bit more than that. But when it's sold in a bodega, it may cost $1 or $2 because of service. But when it's sold in a Michelin star restaurant or a Starbucks, for instance, it costs between $3 and $6. That big addition in the price is because the experience increases the perceived value of products. The companies that create what the authors call happiness experience capture customers' heart and also their time and money. Starbucks has been mentioned many times as a good example of experience stager, another term that I love in the book. For a while, it really changed how we buy coffee with emphasis in incredible customer service, calling people by their name, fresh ground coffee beans, but that all has changed in these last few years. Joe published an article talking about how Starbucks commoditized itself when trying to be more efficient. I will leave the link in the show notes because this is an incredible read. The authors used many interesting terms in the book like act, stage, theater, and gave many great examples of companies that use the happiness generation experience to add value to consumers. Some of his examples are Build-A-Bear Workshop, Legoland, Disney, and I would like to add other brands that I've been to that have been done an excellent job in experience. House of Rituals in Amsterdam, Tiffany at Fifth Avenue, Camp in New York, Jim Thompson House in Thailand, and of course the incredible Korean brand, Gentle Monster. This book is 100% worth the read and I'm looking forward to reading the next one. I would love to know which other books you recommend to other commerce leaders. Be in touch. You can comment on YouTube or reach out to me on LinkedIn. On YouTube, you can also find a playlist with the interview with other book authors, and please don't forget to subscribe. I am an avid reader and can't wait to hear about what you are reading. I hope you are having a great summer and see you next Tuesday.